My parents pressured me into babysitting my nephew without pace. I refused and walked out, leaving them shocked by the consequences of their demands. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the one everyone depends on whether I like it or not. Growing up, I was the mature kid, the one who got good grades, who stayed quiet during arguments, who handled things while everyone else unraveled. It became a running joke in our house. Oh, thank God for you. You're our rock. But jokes like that stop being funny when they start sounding like expectations carved in stone. My younger sister, Melissa, is 24. She's a single mom now. Her boyfriend walked out when their son, Ethan, was barely a year old. She moved back in with our parents, and since then, it's like the house revolves around her and Ethan. Mom calls her a warrior. Dad says she's doing her best. And me? I'm the one they call when they need diapers, when the car battery dies, when Ethan's sick and Melissa just needs an hour to rest. No one ever asks if I have plans, or if I'm tired after a 10-hour shift, or if I even want to do it. They just assume I'll handle it because I always do. Last month, I came home to find Ethan already in my apartment. Melissa had dropped him off for a bit and told my mom she'd cleared it with me. She didn't, but when I texted her, she replied, "It's just for a couple hours. You love him anyway." I do love my nephew. That's the hardest part. But I'm starting to feel like love is being used as a weapon against me. It's like I'm the family's emotional spare, tyrantly appreciated when something else falls apart. And lately, I've been wondering what would happen if I just stopped showing up. The first real breaking point started on a Friday evening. I'd been looking forward to that weekend for weeks, my first full 2 days off in months. I had plans to grab dinner with some friends, maybe finally sleep in without an alarm. But right before I was about to leave, my mom called. "Sweetheart," she began in that tone she uses when she's about to make something sound harmless. "Melissa has a little situation. Could you watch Ethan for a few hours tomorrow?" I hesitated. "Mom, I already made plans. I haven't had a weekend to myself in forever." Her sigh came heavy through the phone. "You know, your sister's been through so much. She barely has time to breathe, and Ethan just adores you. Can't you help just this once?" That phrase, "just this once," wasn't new. It never really meant once. It meant until further notice. Against my better judgment, I gave in. Fine, but only for a few hours. When I got to my parents' place the next morning, Melissa didn't even look tired. She was dressed up, makeup perfect, scrolling through her phone. "Thanks, big bro. You're a lifesaver," she said, kissing Ethan's forehead before heading out. "Where are you going?" I asked, half-dashed joking. She smiled. "I deserve a little me time." Those few hours turned into 7. By the time she came home, Ethan was asleep on my chest, and my patience was gone. "You could have texted," I said quietly. Melissa rolled her eyes. "Relax. You act like it's a big deal." I wanted to argue, but my mom walked in beaming, saying, "See? Family helps family." I forced a smile, but something inside me twisted. Because deep down, I knew this wouldn't be the last time. I should have drawn the line right then, but I didn't, and that was the mistake they were counting on. The next weekend, it happened again. Melissa texted me Saturday morning, "Hey, brunch again? Ethan's already dressed. Mom said you were free?" I hadn't said that, obviously, but by the time I read the message, Ethan was already being dropped off at my place by my dad. When I tried to protest, Dad gave me this look, like I was being dramatic. "Come on, he's a good kid. You two get along great? Let your sister breathe, huh?" And just like that, it became routine. Every Saturday. Sometimes Sunday too. At first, I kept track out of disbelief. 4 weekends in a row, then 6, then 10. No offers of gas money. No lunch packed for Ethan. Just a casual expectation that I'd give up my time without complaint. I didn't hate babysitting. I hated being assumed. I hated how Melissa would post Instagram stories with her girlfriends, wine glasses, brunches. Beach days while I sat on the couch trying to keep a toddler from smearing applesauce into my carpet. When I brought it up gently, even Melissa scoffed. You think I'm living it up? That's called coping. Maybe try having a kid and getting dumped before judging. And my mom? She's doing her best. You're just helping out. You're not a martyr. Don't act like one. But I was starting to feel like one. Like I was the only one whose time didn't matter, whose weekends didn't count, whose life was just background noise to everyone else's drama. One afternoon, while Ethan napped on my lap, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I never had before. What would happen if I just said no? The breaking point came on a Saturday I'd promised myself I wouldn't give up. My coworkers had planned a hiking trip, something I desperately needed after months of being everyone's backup plan. For once, I was going to do something for me. That morning, as I was loading snacks into my backpack, my phone buzzed. It was Melissa. Double quotes, "Hey, can you take Ethan today? I need to get my hair done. Won't be long." I took a deep breath and typed back, "Sorry, I'd already have plans." "Maybe mom or dad can help today." Her reply came within seconds. "Wow, really? You know, I don't ask for much." Then, minutes later, Mom called. "Your sister's having a rough week. Don't be stubborn. You can go hiking another time." I clenched my jaw. "Mom, it's not about being stubborn. I just want one day that's mine." Her tone shifted sharp, guilt-laced. "Unbelievable. After everything your sister's gone through, you can't help for one afternoon." Against the background, I heard Melissa muttering, "Forget it, Mom. I'll just do it myself. I can't rely on him for anything." That one stung. I didn't reply. I left anyway. For the first time, I ignored their calls and drove out of the city. My chest tight with guilt and defiance tangled together. For a few hours, surrounded by quiet trees and sunlight filtering through the branches, I felt free. But when I got home that night, Ethan was asleep on my couch. A note sat beside him. I had no choice. "You're his uncle. Be responsible for once." I stared at it for a long time, the weight of betrayal settling deep in my chest. That night, something inside me cracked. I started saving every message, every call, every little manipulation, because I knew this wasn't over. I waited until the next morning to say something. I needed to cool down, to collect my thoughts. But even with a night to process, I was still shaking when I walked into my parents' house. Melissa was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. Mom was folding laundry on the couch, and Dad glanced up from his phone without much interest. I cleared my throat. "You can't just leave Ethan at my place without asking. That's not okay." Melissa looked up slowly, her expression hardening. "I left you a note. What more do you want?" I said no, I replied. "I told you I had plans. You knew that." Mom jumped in before Melissa could speak. "Watch your tone. She's under a lot of stress. You have no idea what it's like raising a child alone." I swallowed back my frustration. "And you have no idea what it's like being treated like a backup parent without any say," Dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. It's just babysitting. You act like we're asking you to donate a kidney. No, you act like I owe you one," I shot back. Melissa's eyes welled up. "You really think I'm using you? After everything I've been through?" She turned to Mom, her voice cracking just enough. "He thinks I'm a burden. Duh." And just like that, the room shifted. Mom glared at me like I'd kicked a puppy. "How could you say something so cruel? She's your sister." I stood there, stunned. I hadn't even said it. But somehow, I was already the villain. Every time I brought up my boundaries, they twisted it into selfishness, into abandonment, into guilt. It didn't matter how calmly I spoke, or how much I explained. They didn't want to hear me. They just wanted me to stay quiet and keep sacrificing. I think part of me still hoped it'd eventually come around. That maybe if I kept showing up, kept explaining, they'd finally get it. But that illusion shattered one night when I met up with my friend Marcus for drinks. Marcus had known me since college. He'd seen the way I bent over backwards for my family, and he wasn't shy about calling it out. "You still babysitting for free?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I nodded, laughing bitterly. "Every weekend like clockwork. You know, Melissa's been flexing on Instagram, right? Fancy brunches? New clothes? Spa days?" I blinked. What are you talking about? He handed me his phone and pulled up her profile. Sure enough, there she was, glasses of champagne clinking. Beach photos with captions like self-care weekend. I earned this in a selfie outside a high-end salon, with the caption, finally, some me time. My stomach dropped. I thought she was broke, I muttered. Marcus gave me a look. Dude, she's not. Word is your parents have been covering most of her bills? Guess who's footing the hidden costs? The ride home that night felt different. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head, Melissa, crying about how hard life was, my parents lecturing me about sacrifice, and all the while, she was living comfortably off their support. And mine, the next day, I confronted her. Are mom and dad paying for your stuff? I asked flat out. She didn't even flinch. They're helping me stay sane. What's your point? So while they cover your rent, I'm the free childcare? She shrugged. Your family. Isn't that what family's for? That was it. That sentence. That smug little shrugged. I walked out without another word, heart pounding, because I finally realized. They weren't confused. They just didn't care. That conversation sat in my chest like a brick for days. Every time I replayed her words, isn't that what family's for? Something inside me hardened. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. So when the next weekend rolled around and Mom called, her tone cheerful and expectant, I already knew what I was going to say. Hey, sweetheart. Melissa has that work event. Could you swing by around noon to watch Ethan? I took a slow breath. No. There was silence on the other end. Then carefully, what do you mean no? I mean, I'm not coming. I already told Melissa, I'm not babysitting anymore. Not for free. Not without asking. Not like this. Her voice dropped. Are you serious right now? You're really going to let your nephew sit at home while your sister tries to provide for him? She's not working, Mom. She's out brunching and posting selfies. I've seen it. I know the truth. The anger came fast. You ungrateful little after everything we've done for you. She's your sister. That little boy adores you. I adore him too, I said quietly. But I'm not his father. I didn't choose this. You did, Melissa did. I'm allowed to have my own life. Before she could spiral into another rant, I ended the call. It felt like tearing off a piece of myself. I stood in my apartment, phone still buzzing in my hand, feeling both sick and weightless at the same time. 5 minutes later, a text came through from Melissa. Wow, you've really changed. Hope your little me time is worth it. I didn't reply. I turned my phone off and tossed it on the couch. And for the first time in years, I sat in silence that wasn't laced with obligation. Just silence. The silence didn't stay. Peaceful for long, after I said no. It was like someone had flipped a switch in my family. No more check-ins. No casual how's your day texts. Not even a message when my birthday rolled around the next week. Just nothing. At first, it stung. I kept checking my phone like some part of me still expected them to come around, to realize they'd pushed too far. But each day without a word chipped away at the guilt. They'd spent years burying me under. I started filling the empty space with things I'd forgotten. I loved long walks, early gym sessions, real weekends. I even reconnected with old friends who drifted after I canceled on them one too many times. One Saturday morning, I was walking back from the coffee shop when I saw a familiar car parked outside my building Dad's. He didn't come up, didn't call, just sat there for 10 minutes, then drove off. A silent message sent and received. They were watching. Still expecting me to break first, but I didn't. Instead, I doubled down. I muted their group chat. I turned off notifications. I gave myself permission to not carry their chaos anymore. The craziest part? My world didn't fall apart without them. In fact, it started to feel like mine for the first time. Of course, they didn't see it that way. One evening, a message from Melissa finally came through. Just 5 words. We see who you are. I stared at it for a while, unsure if it was supposed to be an insult or a confession. Either way, she wasn't wrong. They finally saw who I was. Someone who'd stopped playing their game. It had been nearly a month since I last spoke to any of them. No calls, number texts, no passive-aggressive visits. I'd started to think maybe the worst was behind me. Then, on a rainy Thursday night, my phone rang. It was Mom. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. Her voice was frantic. "Ethan's sick. Melissa can't leave work. He's burning up and I have no idea what to do." Every instinct I'd tried to bury kicked in. I grabbed my jacket, keys, and was in my car before I could even think twice. By the time I got there, Ethan was curled up on the couch, flushed and whimpering. Mom was pacing. Melissa was nowhere in sight. Without saying a word, I scooped Ethan up and brought him to my place. I stayed up all night with him, cool cloths, cartoons, tiny sips of water. I held his hand until he finally fell asleep, his tiny fingers clutching mine like I was the only safe place he had left. When the sun came up, Melissa walked through my door, sunglasses on, latte in hand. She looked around, unimpressed. "He okay?" I blinked at her. "Where were you?" She pulled off her shades. "I had plans. I figured you'd handle it." Thing as if it were some kind of favor. "Thanks, by the way." I didn't respond. She looked at the living room, then back at me. "You could have come sooner, you know. He needed you." That's when something inside me broke. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked into the kitchen, grabbed my phone, and blocked her number. Then I blocked my parents. Because that moment, watching her stand there, unfazed, blaming me for showing up too late after I sacrificed my night, was when I knew I was done. The silence this time wasn't forced, it was mine. And it was final. After I blocked them, the guilt came back hard. Not because I missed their chaos, but because I missed the idea of family. The illusion that if I just did enough, loved enough, gave enough, they'd eventually see me, appreciate me, care about me the way I'd cared about all of them. But that version of family had never really existed. It was something I made up to survive it. I started therapy that week. I remember sitting across from my therapist, hands clenched in my lap, asking, "Is it normal to feel like the villain when you're finally protecting yourself?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "It's normal to feel guilty for breaking patterns, especially when you were raised to believe love only comes after sacrifice." That hit me harder than I expected. We spent weeks untangling it. How I'd been trained, subtly and constantly, to believe my worth came from being useful. That boundaries were selfish. That rest was lazy. That saying no meant failing the people I loved, and I believed all of it until now I deleted the group chat. I stopped checking Melissa's social media. I even turned down a few family invites from extended relatives who suddenly remembered I existed, usually right after hearing some sob story from my mom. The most surprising part? Nothing fell apart without me. Ethan was fine. Melissa found someone else to watch him. My parents kept enabling her. Life went on just without me in the middle of it. For the first time in my adult life, I had time to think about me. What I wanted, what I needed, who I was when I wasn't being someone else's solution. And the more I focused on that, the less I missed any of them. It had been nearly 3 months since I cut contact, the longest stretch in my life without speaking to my family. And while I expected the silence to eventually collapse into shouting or guilt-laced voicemails, it didn't. What came instead was unexpected. My aunt called me one afternoon, someone I hadn't heard from in years. "I don't want to get involved," she said immediately, "but your mom's really struggling." She said Melissa's job situation went south, and they're drowning trying to help with Ethan. I kept my voice neutral. "That's unfortunate." She paused. "They didn't tell me you walked out. Just that you turned cold lately." I nearly laughed. Turned cold? They'd bled me dry and were shocked I finally stepped away. I didn't bother explaining. I just told her I hope they figure it out. That week I got a string of texts from unknown numbers, old family friends, cousins I barely knew. Each one, some version of, "They really need you right now." But none of them asked if I was okay. None of them wanted the full story. Just like always, it was only worth what I could do. What they didn't know is I already knew about Melissa losing her job. A mutual friend had mentioned it casually. She'd been let go weeks ago after skipping shifts and clashing with management. Classic Melissa. And now, with no income and no free babysitter, the whole house of cards was collapsing. But I stayed silent because I realized something powerful. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. And once I stopped doing it, their whole system crumbled. Not out of cruelty, but because they'd built everything on a lie. That I would never leave. I used to dream about revenge, about some dramatic moment where I'd finally explode, say everything I'd held back for years while they sat stunned, speechless, maybe even ashamed. But the truth is, that moment never came. And I stopped waiting for it because I didn't. Need a dramatic ending to feel free? My peace didn't come from making them feel what I felt. It came the day I realized I didn't need to fix anything anymore. Ethan still crosses my mind. He's just a kid, caught in a mess he didn't create. But I also know I can't be his rescuer at the cost of destroying myself. I tried to love him through obligation, through manipulation, through guilt, and none of that was ever fair to either of us. Now, I have weekends again. I sleep in. I cook meals I actually enjoy, not rushed between errands. I joined a weekend hiking group. I laugh more. And sometimes I sit on my balcony with coffee in silence and realize how unnatural that used to feel. The urge to check my phone, to wait for a crisis, to brace for the next demand, it's gone. A few weeks ago, Melissa sent a letter to my building. No apology, just a scribbled line. Family doesn't walk away. Stared at it for a long time. And then I threw it in the trash. Because family does walk away when they're only seen as tools. When their love is weaponized. When their silence is the only way to survive. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped building them alone. And now standing on the other side of the chaos, I finally understand. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight back. It's to walk away and never look over your shoulder.